everyone, welcome to another Sunday live stream. I'm really excited for today's live stream because I have a wonderful guest. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. With me today is Shelby Watson-Hampton. She's a real go-getter in the agricultural space. She has a new book out, Grace, Grit, and Lipstick, so you should check that out. She's also a farmer herself. She has Robin Hill Farm and Vineyards. So I'm excited about this because I haven't talked to anyone who has a vineyard before. And she's also a bit of an expert in agricultural marketing, which I think could be helpful for anyone who is hoping to make a living, either homesteading or building their own small farm. So really excited to have Shelby here. And yeah, Shelby, I'll let you introduce yourself quickly while we wait for everyone to join.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I am so excited to join you, Erica, and your audience. This is such a great resource, I think, that you're providing for folks who have land or interested in buying land or in the process of acquiring land. There's so much that goes into that. And we have some experience in my family with that as well, and with our farming business. And then also in my day job, I work with a kind of quasi-governmental nonprofit that helps farmers in our regional area market their products, diversify their farm operations, connect with consumers, and a lot of land preservation efforts actually go along with that too. So yeah, I'm excited to be here to share with your audience, to meet them. We can talk about the book later too, and I'm here for questions and just to hang out with you guys this evening. So thanks for having me.
Great. Well, I will start out by asking some questions, and then as everyone joins, just so you know, you can drop some questions in the chat, and I'll ask them. And so we can keep this informal, whatever you guys want to talk about. But for now, let's start with some of my questions. So first, you did just release a new book. So can you share a little bit of your journey writing the book? You know, what it's about, how was that, how was your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always been a bookworm. I was the girl who got in trouble at night for hiding under the covers with a flashlight, reading your book, reading books during school that were more fun than the textbooks I was supposed to be reading. So I've always wanted to write as well. As an avid reader, you kind of turn to writing a little bit. It's been a side hustle of mine for a few years that I write for some agricultural publications. One is a national, it's called American Agriculturalist, and I write an every other month column. And then I also write an editorial weekly column for our Lancaster farming newspaper, which is a 5-state. It's like the 5 mid-Atlantic states. So I'm in Maryland, Southern Maryland. And then that covers our surrounding states as well. So I'd been writing for a while, freelance, loved it, had a lot of fun, and was kind of building towards the idea that I'd want to write a book one day. I didn't know it was going to be this book until about a year and a half ago, when all these ideas kind of coalesced. And I realized that as a woman in agriculture, and what you call kind of a young farmer still at the age of 38, I'm kind of on that cusp of young to middle-aged farmer, and a rural businesswoman, there's not a lot of books for us. Like, there's not a lot of books that speak to women in agriculture, women farmers, rural entrepreneurs. So not just farmers, but other women in the country space that are doing small businesses. And I was reading the ones I could find, but there's not a lot of them. So I was kind of like, well, maybe I could write one. So the book is called Grace, Grit, and Lipstick: Wit and Wisdom for the Modern Female Farmer and Her Farm Curious Friends. And it's not really just about me. It's not a memoir. It's narrative nonfiction. So it talks about my farm story and our family, but I feature 15 other farm women and rural entrepreneurs all across the country, and different conferences I've attended and different ag groups I've run across at the national and regional level, and resources for anybody who is looking to get into farming, who is new to farming, or is running a rural business, or just lives in a rural area and kind of wants to have that support and that connection. And the whole goal of the book is to bring women together in that space and kind of make sure that no rural woman feels like she's doing it alone.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I think it sounds like a book that many women could really benefit from.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for producing that. And I have a link to your website in the description, so if anyone anyone wants to check out the book and more information on you, you can do that. Just go to the description of this live stream.
Yes, thank you. And that the website is thefarmedlife.org. So my online persona, my Instagram handle is the farmed life, kind of like the charmed life, but farmed. So they can find me there.
But you're not just an author, you do also run Robin Hill Farm and Vineyards. So what inspired you? Well, tell us a little bit about your farm and what inspired you to enter the world of vineyard management and farm management.
Yeah. So try to make a long story short, right? Because it's a couple generations worth. So my aunt actually owns the farm and the business right now, and I am her business partner. So she's the owner and senior partner. I'm the junior partner, and both of our husbands work with us as well. So it's 4 partners. I'm running the family farm, and we still have 18 other family members that live on the property, including my 87-year-old grandmother, my parents, cousins, aunts, uncles. So over the couple hundred acres, you've got a good handful of us. And my aunt and I started the business back in 2013. We planted the vineyard in 2014 and opened the farm wedding business as well in 2014 because we do weddings in our old stables that we converted. And then the vineyard was producing in 2017, so we actually opened the winery in 2017. So all within the last, 10 to 12 years has really been a new part of the agricultural industry for us. But when I was growing up and when my parents were growing up, my aunts and uncles, it was a large tree and shrub nursery. So we used to have over 100 acres of ornamental shrubs and trees and flowering plants and things of that nature. And we also did an agritourism operation. In fact, we were one of the first in our area to do what you now consider like a typical fall festival at a farm, where you would, take a hayride and see the animals and pick a pumpkin. And my grandparents started that in the 70s. And so we grew up doing that the entire month of October as well. And then going even further back, when my grandparents first purchased the farm, like many of the farms in our area, it was hogs and tobacco. 2 markets which are not that lucrative anymore, and kind of both fell in the 80s, which necessitated the previous transitions. So we've always fluctuated with the markets. My grandparents, my parents, my aunt, myself, as farmers do, you have to stay on top of the trends. If you aren't growing, you're stagnating. If you stagnate too long, you fail. So yeah, it's always been interesting. It's never a dull moment.
So what were some of the biggest challenges when you transitioned to the vineyard?
Yeah. So that all came about. So we had been a large tree and shrub nursery while I was in college. My aunt was running the business with my grandfather, and my mother worked there, a couple other family members, and then several employees as well. My grandfather passed away very unexpectedly. He was still fairly young. He was only in his early 70s in 2005. And that was like a massive shock to the family, which I talk about that in my book, as it is with any family business, but especially with family farm businesses. When you lose, your matriarch or patriarch, or maybe your main, operator on the farm, it kind of throws everything into disarray. So my aunt ended up inheriting that portion of the farm where the businesses were. And it took her and my grandmother and my mom, a couple of years to kind of phase out of the nursery industry. They decided they weren't really going to keep going with that. I was in college. I got out of college. I was working at another farm that does agritourism and events. And my aunt and I kind of came together, like I said, 2012, 2013. It was that winter, that December, January, and said, okay, we're ready to take this and do something else with it. Like, the farm has to pay for itself. The family has to be able to use the farm. And, we have to come up with another viable business option. So that's kind of what came about, and why vineyard and winery and weddings. We did a lot of research when it came to what we could do at the property. And the University of Maryland Extension, so University of Maryland is our land grant university, so they have the extension office there. And there is a land grant university and an extension office in every state. And their whole goal is to help farmers, have profitable farms, and to do new research and to help provide resources. So we went to our extension, we went to our local commodity groups, we went to a lot of farm bureau meetings, and kind of sussed out what might be viable for us in our area, and for our soil, and for what we thought we could handle. And vineyard and winery and wedding barn it was. So here we are.
And you Any stories from that transition that you'd
Oh
like to?
yeah, there's stories. Um, let's see. The wedding business, yes. Okay. So my now husband, then fiance, we decided that we were going to be the first wedding at the farm so that we could use all of our photos for marketing, right? So all of our wedding photos were also dual purpose marketing photos for the website and the brochures and the pamphlets, etc.
Nice.
So we were in a mad scramble all the way up to the day of the wedding to get the farm looking perfect, which if you know farms, you know, like there's always a fence that needs to be fixed and something that needs to be painted and, you know, this, that, and the other. And we got there. It was a gorgeous day. We did some pre-wedding photos, and I had a bridesmaid was standing with me, and we were doing photos. And she looks past me, and she goes, "Who are those people? They're like 3 hours early to the wedding. Who is that?" And I look over, and there's a group of people, and I'm like, I don't recognize any of those people. I don't know who they are. And then I see my Aunt Susan, and she had invited 6 couples to come before the wedding to tour the farm and the wedding barn to see how we had set it up for our wedding. So, because they were interested in having their weddings there too. So she had a tour coming through while we were doing our wedding photos. And I was just like, oh my God, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And all 6 of those couples booked their weddings with us.
Uh,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will tell you that having weddings, you learn something new every year. We have an extensive list of rules now that you wouldn't think you'd need until you have an incident, and then you're like, we need that. There was once a rather inebriated Scotsman with a real live sword attached to his kilt. And we've decided that no weaponry is allowed at the wedding barn, and that includes real swords. Um, so there's been all sorts of interesting and fun and precious moments. And we learn something new every year. Yeah.
oh, that sounds like a fun journey.
Yes. I will be honest though, and I talk about this in the book, you know, family business is hard, right? Farming is hard. You put them together and it's hard. There are ups and downs. There are good moments. There are super stressful ones. There are times when you question, like, why are you doing this in the first place? But it all comes back to, you know, the ties to the land and the family, you know, the farming community itself, and being able to make money in this world that we find ourselves in, you know, where inflation is rising and farm inputs costs are rising, and what can you do to diversify and pick a niche and, you know, be different, stand out, um, to make enough money to keep the farm, and that's what it's all about.
Well, that's a really good point. For someone who's looking to start a small homestead, family farm in general, what would be your top tips for helping someone find that niche that's really going to be profitable, or at least
Yeah. So we talk about this in the book too. So a couple things you really want to do is you want to look at where you are. So you want to look at your city centers, you want to look at your population. You know, what is the income bracket around you? What are people able to spend their disposable income on? We're kind of in a unique situation. We live rurally. Like there's our town is so small we don't even have a real post office anymore. They kicked us to the next zip code over. But we are within an hour of the nation's capital. So we're just south of Washington, D.C., about an hour. We're about 45 minutes south of Annapolis, another big city here, that draws international visitors. And then like Arlington and Alexandria are close by too. So we have the population, which is great because they can come in, you know, spend the day at the winery. They don't mind traveling 45 minutes to an hour for a wedding. So agritourism, which basically is any activity on a farm where you're bringing in outside guests, you know, and charging them for the activity or the event, has always been a kind of a side hustle for us. And of course now is the full time. So we had to figure out though what we were zoned for. So you want to look at your zoning, and that goes for not just property, because sometimes, you know, you have to be on so many acres to do certain events, or to do certain agricultural endeavors. But you need to look at all your permitting when it comes to, you know, zoning, permitting, your fire marshal, your health department, parking, noise violations, you know, anything that would box you in on what you want to do. And you also want to be a really good neighbor. So you want to make sure that if there are parameters or boundaries on those things, that you're obliging by them, and, you know, you're keeping your neighbors happy, because that can very quickly lead to a not great situation. Yeah, but I do have one resource that I would love to recommend to anybody who's a landowner, a farmer, a homesteader who's looking to make extra money on the farm. in that type of agritourism capacity, hosting events or having classes or workshops or, a CSA or a farm stand. There's a group called the North American Farmers Direct Marketing Association. It's a mouthful. So their acronym is NAFDMA, which we say NAFDMA. NAFDMA is the go-to resource in the States and then in Canada as well for agritourism, direct marketing, farm marketing. We've done a lot with them, and I think our business wouldn't be where it was today if we didn't have some of that resources. So I'd encourage anyone to take a peek at that if they're serious about using their land to make some extra income.
And can you give that name again? I'll put it in the chat.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so it's the North American Farm Direct Marketing Association. I can link them for you.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, let me just drop in there in my quick search. And I'm not paid. I'm not on the board even. I'm just a regular member. But it is a resource, and I mentioned it in the book too, that if you're looking to diversify your operation, expand your operation, start something new, they're the ones. And they're super, super reliable.
Wonderful. We did get one question in the chat. And Wes says, love your story.
Thank you.
You cover many great ideas. Do you think someone without family land could ever get started?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Now, it's not easy, right? And in that, I totally recognize the blessings that we have. In fact, I sat on the Maryland Agricultural Board for many years, and we did a survey a couple years before COVID actually hit, and it was focused on young farmers and the barriers to entry for those who didn't grow up farming or didn't grow up with family land and want to get into the industry, which there are a good number of people, and we need them because the average age of the farmer in the US right now is sitting around 57 to 59 years old. And all those folks are going to age out in a while, and we need an influx of new people. But the 3 top barriers to entry we found over a year-long survey and study were access to land, access to capital, and access to mentors. And so Maryland has taken some time to try to alleviate those issues. And I will drop a link in the chat for you all too. I think I can only see my chat. I can't see everybody's, but if you can see it, that's really all that matters. There's a website we have here in my state, but there are other states that have these resources too, have something similar. And if not, the ideas are still applicable from state to state. Ours is called Maryland Farm Link. Maryland Farm Link is a website put together that does many things. It connects farmers who want to get started, so new, beginning, second career, with mentors, farmers in the industry who have been doing it a while. And they can connect over the forums. There's questions. There is land accessible portals where you can look for land for sale, for lease, or for people who have land, and want to facilitate working with a farmer. They might not be able to farm it themselves anymore. Maybe they're older or don't have the capacity and can help lease that out. So I think absolutely people can get in. Is it harder? It is. It is, and I'm sorry for that. And I think our generation is trying to make it easier. But it's a tough nut to crack. But I can tell you, we need you if you're interested in getting into this industry in any way. And you can start small. I know a lot of people in our town and the next town over who sell to the farmers market where they have 1 acre, 2 acres. They're on basically a homestead lot, or a residential house lot. And they're growing herbs, or they're doing container gardening, or they're doing cut flowers. And they can make a really good business, a really good side hustle out of something like that. So you don't have to feel like you need to start big, or go into massive debt for that. I think that there are markets, especially in the smaller space, especially urban type farming, where you can break in at a much smaller scale.
And if you could only afford about 1 acre, is it realistic to think that you could earn a living off of 1 acre or 2, or would you should expect to start out more as a side hustle?
I would think it depends on where you are and what you're doing, but I would more safely say probably as a side hustle. You started as your side gig and then work up to it. There are urban farms in Baltimore City, which is about 1.5 hours from us, that are making a full-time living off, 1 acre or 2 in the city with their products. But there's more that I know that do it as kind of a part-time hustle. You start small, you start with what you have, you see what the market is in your area. You connect with your farmers market managers or your CSA producers. And it's another thing too, a lot of farms that start small like that, they partner with other farms to offer a bigger product. So I have a friend who does cut flowers. She has a flower CSA, which is gorgeous, but they'll occasionally do workshops at other places. So we will have her come to our winery and actually do a bouquet workshop. Like she brings the flowers, she teaches people how to set them up, and we give her wine. We give everyone wine. They get a glass with their bouquet, and it works great. And then I have another farmer who is a dairy farmer, and they make cheese at their farm, cheese and yogurt, and they'll do boxes, but then they partner with a couple folks down the road who have honey, or who have nuts or who have whatever, and they'll put the boxes together and sell that as like a full package, which is more than what just their farm provides, but it works for everybody. So I think collaboration, especially in this generation, so like younger Gen X, millennial, and Gen Z, potentially alpha coming up, like we're all very much collaborative and type of kind of a rising tide raises all boats. So don't be afraid to reach out. Like a lot of the younger farmers are looking for connection. They're looking for collaboration. They want to do something unique. So if you have a new idea, even if you're not a farmer, if you have a product, if you have a small business, you have an Etsy shop, you have something that you think would be an addition to a farm product line, reach out. I think it's worth that.
And so in terms of marketing, what are the best ways to market your products?
Well, it's all online now, right?
Yeah.
Which sometimes I feel like is screaming into the void. But yeah, you got to be on Instagram. Okay. You got to have a website, you got to do your Facebook. Some people do Pinterest and Etsy, depending on the products. That's great. I have those accounts. I don't really do much with them. All of our marketing at the Vineyard and Winery is mostly Facebook, Instagram, and website. And then same for the book, for my side hustle here, for my writing. And I am, my title at work is agricultural marketing specialist. I'm the director of that department, but I feel like it changes often. The online world is constantly moving and the algorithms are constantly shifting. So I can't, like, if I say something today, it might not be relevant in a month or two. But I think the best overall advice is to watch the trends, but provide authentic content. Like your followers or your consumers want to know you, your real story, not just the polished, like perfect stuff, but they want to know you. People buy from people, right? People don't buy from companies, people buy from people, especially when you're talking about the niche space and the agricultural space. Having a great product is important. Having a quality product is important, but putting yourself forward to the brand and being authentic in your story and authentic in your offers, I think is the most important part.
So what kinds of content would you recommend? Like showing people day-to-day life on your farm?
Yep. Yeah, so it's really funny. The largest hits that we have on our farm marketing, like through Instagram and through Facebook and stuff, is when we show kids, my grandmother, or any animal, like babies, grandmas, and animals. If you can rein that in, I'm telling you, it works. It gets people's attention. And behind the scenes stuff. So like we'll take videos when we're bottling the wine, when we're corking the wine, we're labeling the wine. People really love those. They always get a lot of hits. We talk about the seasons in the vineyard. So where we are, our season starts end of February, beginning of March, depending on the weather, with pruning. And then we're in the vineyard hands-on every week from that point on until you finish harvesting, probably end of October. And sometimes the grapevines grow so fast you can almost see it. They're like bamboo. They can do an inch, half an inch a day. And so like sometimes we'll take photos of the same vine, throughout the year. Like my aunt did that this time. It was really cool to see through the seasons. Yeah, just us working. People like to know what goes into their food, what goes into their wine. And it's a behind the scenes that not a lot of folks get, I think. Which we tend to forget because we're in the industry. So it's a lot of what we do, but farmers only make up about 2% of the US population. And the 2% is feeding the 100% because we're feeding ourselves and everybody else, or giving them stuff to drink in my case. So yeah, I think a lot of people are, several generations removed from the farm at this point, and the buy local movement, the get to know your farmer movement, those are still picking up steam. It's still becoming, especially since COVID, something that a lot of people are tuning into now.
And any tips for how to get your first few venues where you can sell products, or if you're going to do
Mhm.
agritourism, how to get your first couple guests in?
Yes, absolutely. So you need to tap your resources. So I already talked about NAFTMA. That's a great national one. You need to know if you're farming or if you're going to be a rural entrepreneur and you're working with local products, you need to know your extension agents. So your university extension, which is one in every state. If you own property and you're going to do something there, you need to know your soil conservation district. So there's a soil conservation district in every state as well. And most of the ones in every state are broken down to counties or regions. And those folks, most of what they do is free. They have grants that are linked to the federal government too. A lot of folks might be familiar with like EQIP or WIP or CREP, those types of grants that you can look up. They will help you at soil conservation do your farm plan. So they'll help you come up with sustainable, soil healthy plans for the property that you have, and water, if you have water on your property as well. And then folks should also look up their local farm bureau. So every state has a farm bureau. Again, those chapters are broken into counties, so wherever you are, and there's a national one. And then look up your commodity groups. So like if you're looking to grow cut flowers, there's a cut flower association. If you're looking to get into horses, there's equine associations. Like for our sake, we're in grapes and wine, right? So we have a Maryland Wineries Association and a Maryland Grape Growers Association. We're members of both. So you really need to dig down into your niche and connect with the folks who are providing resources. And almost anything you can think of has an association, has a group, that people have done it before you. Don't reinvent the wheel. Get in there and learn from the mentors. So I think tapping your resources is the most vital thing that I could offer as a piece of advice.
And in terms of buying your first property, you have any advice for someone who doesn't have land right now?
While we are farming family land, I did not have to buy that. My husband and I did purchase the property where we live, which is just a few acres, with a little tiny house. I call it our wee cottage. So, the market is so crazy right now. I really feel we bought 13 years ago, which was hard enough at that time. And right now with the rates, the way things are, if someone was looking for property now, if you don't have financing, if you don't think you can swing it, I would honestly, if you're first getting started, I would look to lease or rent. I would work with a farmer who, has property or a landowner who has property that you could use. I would partner with a co-op. I would start there before you throw your investment into land. Of course, land, in my opinion, is one of the best investments you can make, but you want to be ready for it. And I think sometimes people jump too quick and then kind of get in, over their heads, which is easy to do. And we've done that a little bit as well. But I would look for the resources in your area. There are also agricultural lenders. So your farm service agency, your farm credit agency. Our state actually has a local one. It's Maryland Agricultural Resource-Based Industry Development Corporation, which is a mouthful. So some states and regions have specific agricultural lenders that'll help you work with a bank and help you get like the lower interest ag loans or help provide bridge loans for banks you're working with. So really it's just research. It's just research, deciding, what you can bite off at the moment and what your risk level is.
And how much should someone expect to have to put down if they're able to access a low interest ag loan?
I don't know. I'm sorry, I can't answer that one. I'm not a banker. So I can't answer that, but I would say, the going rate of land varies too, right? From region to region all across the country. There's also opportunities, and I think this depends where you are, but in our state, we have a lot of parkland owned by the state and owned by the Department of Natural Resources, and they provide leases and plots for farmers too, which is another good way to get in, get your feet wet before you decide to actually purchase the land. But as they say, my grandfather, one of his favorite sayings was, land is one of the most precious assets. They're not making any more of it.
Yeah.
So get it when you can. And that's the thing with farmers is like once the land's in the family, you don't want to sell it. You don't want to have to sell that or have family members who want to sell it because the land becomes like a piece of you. It becomes a part of the family. It's almost like its own entity. In fact, I have a girlfriend who farms a couple hours north of us. They also have an agritourism farm. Her grandfather is buried on the farm, and on his tombstone it says, "Never sell the land."
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. That's legit. That's what we grow up in. That's the legacy right there, right? So we just try to keep it, make it better than it was when we got it, and try to hand it down if we can.
And that's a good segue into once you have land or you have a land lease, what resources are there to help you? Well, we talked a lot about resources that can help you with knowledge and capacity building, but are there financial resources to help you get started on the farm? And then also, how would you approach land management to ensure that you are building an asset that you can pass down and turn into, a long-term family business and legacy?
Yes, this is great. I love this question. So some of those groups I mentioned already are super key. So your extension agency and your soil conservation district, that's a lot of what they do. You can tap into so many resources nationwide, right? There is the Young Farmers Coalition. There's the land trusts. There's a few of those. So the American Chestnut Land Trust is one near us. The American Farm Bureau has resources for this. The National Farmers Union has resources for this. But really the goal these days is to, farm in a way that you are keeping the nutrients in the ground. You're keeping the land as viable and as agriculturally diverse and ecologically diverse. That's the word I was looking for. As you can. So mimicking the nature around you rather than like trying to beat it into submission, right? Like you don't want to grow something that's not good for your zone or not good for your climate because you're going to set yourself and the crop up to fail. So you got to look at your land. So, land that's great for growing one crop isn't going to be great for growing another. You have to pay attention to that. In our instance, grapes. So we have 6 different grape varieties. Grapes like well-drained sandy soil. They do not like wet feet, as we call it. They don't like their roots to be wet, to be, in places that hold a lot of moisture. Some crops do though. So you have to figure out what's good for you. And there's such a movement now to get back to more natural use with the land. On our farm, we're not organic certified. That's a whole nother kind of discussion. We try to use as sustainable and organic practices as we can, throughout the growing season. And occasionally we do have to use synthetic things. So we have a problem with humidity and moisture in our area. So the powdery mildew and the downy mildew, big problem. There are, certain things you can use in your spraying system to alleviate that, which we do have to do. But we also use organic compounds as well. I think what's important, whether you're a conventional farm, an urban farm, an organic farm, large or small, is that you do what works for your farm, your crops, your environment, and you do it in the most ecologically sound way as possible. So, and I think a lot of farmers, they say farmers are the first conservationists because the land is our whole living. It's our family, it's our livelihood, it's our legacy. We want to take good care of it. So yeah, there's a lot of resources and there's a lot of independent nonprofit type groups that provide resources too. There's all sorts of levels. And I think you can always find something that's going to work for you. It's just a little bit of trial and error.
And for someone who's just starting out as well, how long would you, well, I don't know if this is a fair question, but how long do you think it would take for someone to be able to get to the point where they can really support themselves through their farm? How realistic is it in this day and age as a first-time farmer?
So it all depends on what you're doing. That's a hard one because the agricultural industry is made up of so many different pockets. Are you growing fruits, vegetables, herbs? Are you doing livestock? What kind of livestock? Are you doing sheep and goats? Are you doing, cows? Are you in the equine industry? Because horses, there's a lot of opportunity there. Are you hosting events? Are you doing farmers markets? I can't really answer that, but I would say probably safely, your 2 to 3 years, your first couple years are going to be your learning curve. You're going to figure out what works, what doesn't, what your customers like, what they don't, what challenges you have on your farm, whether that's weather or pests, or neighbors, um, whatever plays into it. Um, it's always safe, in my opinion, to start these things as a side hustle, as a part-time gig. Keep your main job, so you have money coming in to pay your bills, keep your lights on, make sure you have an emergency fund, and then slowly move forward from there. I think is how a lot of people do it. And I will say, caveat too, my husband and I both work full time off the farm jobs. We have to. We wouldn't be able to pay our bills and have full dental coverage or health care, if we didn't. And that's super common across this country. 52% of US farmers also work another job off the farm in order to be able to keep farming. And that's a sad statistic. And it's something that needs to be fixed in the system. I don't know how we fix it. It'd be great if all farmers could make, a beautiful living wage and support their family just on the farm. And some do, but it takes a long time to get there. And, that's kind of the dream, to be able to do that. But even if you're new and beginning and starting out, you're not alone in that struggle. Even generational farmers, most of us still have jobs off the farm. And it's just kind of the way things are at the moment.
Okay. Well, it's good to know. Go in with realistic expectations, but it's certainly still possible to start from scratch.
Absolutely. It's funny because I call myself a realistic optimist. I am the glass is half full person. I like that. I'm always like, oh, new ideas, new energy. But I am also kind of realistic too, in the fact that, certain things take time and certain systems are set up in certain ways. But yes, no, we need new people. And I think it's admirable for folks who want to jump into that arena. And highly recommend they connect with the resources we talked about, because you can do it. It might take a while. It might not look exactly like what you think it's going to look like, but you can do it.
We have another question from the chat, which I think is a good one. For someone who's a landowner, and who doesn't want to farm themselves, and they want to make their land available for a farmer, do they have to get licensed? Is there a certain process they have to go through? Do you have any tips you could give landowners?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, as far as I know, there's no license. You are a landowner, so you have the ability to do what you want with your land, within the laws of your state or county. So yeah, that would be so great. There are so many ways you could go about that. So let's say you're a landowner and you want to help incubate these young farmers. Connect with your local colleges. Okay, so your universities, your colleges, your community colleges. They have ag students, so agricultural and natural resource students. They have environmental students. They're always looking for internships, and they're always looking for opportunities to do test plots. And you can get into some really cool stuff doing that, and it really make a difference. The USDA has a lot of information. I'm sorry, that's a resource I should have mentioned earlier. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has a lot going on for new and beginning farmers right now. They have grants, they have loans, they have all sorts of programs. They love finding landowners, who are willing to work with young and beginning farmers. You can connect again with those previous resources, the University of Maryland Extension, University Extension, whatever your university is. Sorry. And then your soil conservation district. So typically as a landowner, what you would do is, and you can Google this, I'm sure it's available. Look up land leases, farming leases in your state and see what they're going for. And there will be templates online for like a farm lease of what you should include between you and the person you are leasing to. I would highly recommend a lawyer take a peek at those type of documents too. Some states do have agricultural law resources. We have an agricultural law center here in my state. I know some other states have that too. But you just want an attorney to, glance at the lease that you're going to prepare for you and your farmer to sign. And you want to think about things like, how long is the lease? You're doing 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year. What is the option to renew? If something happens to either party, what are the options for backing out or changing? You want to be really clear on what the access looks like. So it's different if you're leasing 100 acres to a grain farmer and he's coming on to plant, corn or soybeans and then combining them and doing that. That's a totally different story than if you're leasing, 5 acres for a cut flower farm, with what they're doing. And are they bringing people on the property, You want to look at liability. So you always want to have insurance involved. For any farmer, producer, or landowner, you want to see what your insurance looks like. And that might require also having like a waiver, an insurance waiver, liability waiver with the lease. You want to think about, as a landowner, are you doing other stuff with that land that may or may not conflict with the farming that's going on? So around our farms, we have a lot of hunters in our family and a lot of family friends that hunt. So like we keep it very clear about who's hunting where, what those hours are. You don't want to have farmers walking around in fields or woods if you have people, at the other end, hunting. And just things like that. And there are resources online. You can probably Google the most frequently asked questions for a farm lease. But I think what it comes down to is that they're tailored, right? So your situation's unique, your land is unique. Take the template and then add or delete as you need to.
That's really good advice.
Thanks.
And then on the other end, for someone who wants to lease land, what would be the key things that they should look out for?
Yeah, so all of that, because they want to know the landowner's boundaries and parameters. They want to know what the landowner is looking to get out of the arrangement. So lease rates are going to vary across the country. I will tell you right now in our area, I think the going rate is $40 to $50 per acre per year. Landowner's not going to make a lot of money doing this. It might be some pocket change for you, some side hustle money. But there are farms too, where instead of paying the lease, they take a portion of the product. So we have a field on our farm that a young farmer down the road is a hay farmer. We don't want to do our own hay. Not interested in that. Love the hay. We have horses and goats and sheep, so we need it. So this young farmer does not pay lease for that field. He grows hay on it, and then we take a certain number of bales, and he takes the rest and sells it. And so instead of the rental rate, you would get a product. So that's an idea too. And then there are some farms where, they will pay like some sort of small lease fee, and then they'll also grow the product, and the farmer will have a little bit of the fee and then take a little bit of product. It just kind of varies. Yeah. I think clear expectations, clear boundaries, and clear communication are probably the most important thing when it comes to farm lease.
All right. And then one other question in terms of land. So if you're buying or leasing land, what are, let's say, the top 3 things you really need to evaluate in order to determine that the property is going to work for your needs?
Yeah. So you want to think about micro and macro climate. Okay. So what does your climate look like for what you want to grow? You want to look at soil type. That would be the second. So you want to get your soils tested, and you want to see, what nutrients might be lacking, what nutrients are overloaded, what you can do to balance that out. You can soil test through your soil conservation district or through your state Department of Agriculture. And then there are private soil labs as well. And there are people that do those all across the country. So you want to make sure that whatever crop you're growing is good for your climate, good for your soils. And then the topography is really important. Like, is it hilly? Is it flat? Is it sandy? Are there trees around it? What are you looking to get out of this property? How can you do it in the most sustainable manner? And then your market. Sorry, that's 4. But you want to make sure you have a market for the product that you're doing, whether it's a commodity market, wholesale, retail, direct marketing, however you're doing it. You want to go into that with as much information as you can.
Great. Yeah, that is great advice. So future plans. What are your future plans for your farm, for your writing career?
Yeah. That's a good thing. People have already asked about a second book, and this one's only been out 4 weeks. I would love to write a second book. I think I have more to say, which would shock no one who knows me. So that's an option. The farm. So we are looking to add more offerings in 2024, more workshops, more events, more collaborations with other farmers and local businesses in the area. We've kind of reached like a 7 to 8 year arc in our farm business journey where it's time to kind of shake things up a little bit again. And the markets have changed a little bit after COVID. So my mom and my aunt and I are the 3 that kind of get together for that, talking about planning events and workshops and things. So I'm looking forward to that. We're going to have a big farm meeting in January, and see what we can come up with. And then, yeah, I am very involved and I recommend this to anyone else too who is getting into this arena, to be involved with the agricultural groups in your area. So, I do a lot of work with Farm Bureau, my Women in Agriculture group, and various others around here. And it's exciting to see some of the progress in this generation of farmers as it becomes more innovative and a little bit more plugged in and connected, the agricultural industry as a whole. So I think doing my part in that, and mentoring. I'm kind of in that weird space where I still have a lot of mentors, but I've also become a mentor kind of for a little bit of the younger ones coming up. And that's a cool space to be in because it feels like giving back. And I do enjoy that.
And to end on your book again. So again, your book is Grace, Grit, and Lipstick. And just if you want to talk about how it could help anyone who's watching right now and who wants to get into the agricultural space.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I called it Grace, Grit, and Lipstick for several reasons, but then that plays into the book. Of course, grace and grit are something that you need in the rural space, whether you're a farmer, a rural producer, a rural entrepreneur, a business owner. It takes a different kind of type of perseverance, but there's some beautiful stuff that comes out of it. And then the rest of the title, the subtitle is Wit and Wisdom for the Modern Day Female Farmer and Her Farm Curious Friends. And I put that last part in there, farm curious friends, because there are a lot of people who are kind of farm adjacent, where they want to know their farmer, where they want to get better into the buy local movement. They're not going to be farmers themselves, but they're like, I want to support local and I want to support small business. And this is a great peek behind the curtain for that. I mean, we get real. Like I got kind of vulnerable in it about, some of the challenges, some of the successes, some of the pitfalls. And I think the more you know, the more you know. So for people looking to support local, it's great. And then for people looking to get into the agricultural space, we have a lot of resources. And the 15 different farm women and rural entrepreneurs that I feature actually put their contact information in the book. So they put in their LinkedIn, their Instagram, their Etsy, their websites, where they are, because we're all we want to be collaborative. We want to see more people in this space. There's kind of room for everybody, I think. And I list podcasts that I have found really helpful for those who are women entrepreneurs and rural business owners and women farmers. I list books that I've read in that space that I think are super helpful. So it's really just about collaboration across the board. And even though the book is geared for women specifically, I've had a lot of men read it too, which kind of cracks me up because I'm like, okay, it's not really geared for you, but I'm glad you're interested. And I think that's important too. So if your husbands and your friends are willing to read that, I think it's a great perspective to share. So I would love for folks to pick it up. It is available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart.com, Bookshop, and Books A Million. So it's available online in the paperback version and in Kindle. We're talking about doing an Audible in the spring, but right now it's Kindle and paperback.
And you talked about collaboration. Are you open to having people reach out to you? And if so, how should they do that?
Absolutely. So my website is thefarmedlife.org. So that's thefarmedlife.org. And then on Instagram, I'm at thefarmedlife. You can find me there. And LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my full name, Shelby Watson-Hampton. So find me there. Absolutely. Jump into the DMs. I am here. I love connecting folks. I love nurturing new business, watching people's ideas take shape. I've had I've been blessed to be able to be on the ground floor of some businesses like that with friends and coworkers. And it's really cool to see what people do and to help cheer them on from the sidelines.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. I learned a lot. This was really wonderful.
Thank you so much for reaching out. I was so excited to do it.
Yeah. So a lot of great information here. I hope anyone who's listening now or in the future, if you're thinking about getting started, dive into all the resources that were mentioned. And Shelby, if there are additional links you want me to add to the description, just let me know. I can put in all of those links. So check out the links in the description. And I've also been putting in a few links in the chat as well for anyone who's watching. So you can scroll through the chat and find those.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And just to everyone out there, if you're if you want to live the farm life, and you're thinking about farming dreams, I do encourage you to go for it. It is rewarding. It's hard work, but it's worth it.
Great. Well, I'm going to quickly do our vacation giveaway now, so you can feel free to sign off. But again, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I hope to connect again with you soon.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. Okay. And so for anyone else who's on and who wants to participate in the vacation giveaway, I know most of you know the terms already, but I'll quickly just cover them. Basically what I do. Also, hopefully you all found that really rewarding, because this was one of my favorite interviews. I really like this. But for the terms, what we give away is a voucher that's valid for a 3 or 4 night stay in a hotel in one of over 50 locations. The hotel is complimentary, but you do need to pay the regular taxes associated with it. It's usually a hotel room for 1 or 2 people, but there's sometimes locations that allow you to bring up to 2 children. And holidays are usually not available. There's also a little extra fee for weekend bookings. But the way it works is, if you win, I'll give you my email. Send me an email. I'll send you the list of locations. You select your location. I'll send you the voucher. When you redeem the voucher, and you have to redeem it within 7 days of getting the link, but when you redeem the voucher, you do pay the taxes, but then you have 18 months to actually book the hotel stay. You won't be able to see the participating hotels ahead of time, but each location should have multiple hotels. And, their availability will vary. The other important thing to note is that you're only able to redeem 1 voucher every 12 months. So if you won one before, or if you got one by purchasing property from us, you do have a few other options. If you still want to participate, you can either give the vacation voucher as a Christmas gift or a holiday gift, or we have a hotel savings card that we can give you as well. So if you want to participate, just say yes in the chat. We'll give everyone a number based on when they said yes. So the first person's 1, second is 2, so on and so on. And then I'll have Google randomly pick a number. If your number comes up, you're the winner. So I'll just wait maybe 30 seconds to see if anyone wants to participate. And like I said, I hope this interview was really useful. Shelby was amazing, very inspirational. So wait another 20 seconds, see if anyone else wants to join. And everyone who's here, as always, thank you so much for joining me. I know it's Sunday evening, prime time. So it's always great to connect and chat with you all and talk about all things related to land. I will note that I will actually not do a live stream next weekend because it is Christmas Eve. And I figure most people are probably going to be busy anyway. And I'll keep you posted on whether, I think the following weekend is actually New Year's Eve. So I'll keep you posted on whether I'll do that the following weekend. But happy holidays to everyone who's celebrating. All right, so it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 participants. And all right, so we'll pick a random number between 1 and 7. And it is number 7. Claudia, congratulations. I think I'm counting 7. So my email is here. I think you have it already. But just send me an email. As for everyone else, I will be back doing these regularly. So if you keep showing up, you will likely win in the future. And again, thank you so much for joining. I'll see you soon, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3. Like I said, I'll keep you posted on that. And have a good evening, everyone. Happy holidays.